All right, to kind of elaborate on leadership skills, which we talked about in the last lecture, we're going to talk about leadership traits, qualities, and values. They go hand in hand with skills, which is why we're talking about them now. Because a lot of time your traits, qualities, and values will define your leadership as much as your skills do, or more so. If we were in a class setting, we would actually make a list of qualities or traits that we expect in a leader. But ones that we typically hear are communication, being comfortable in front of other people, charisma, outgoing, good listener, open-minded, visionary, skilled, confident. Confidence a really popular one. And it really depends on the leadership role or the person, honestly, which ones are most important for leadership. So that question, there's a trick question. There is no one that's most important for leadership. Each one of us might consider things that are more important. Like for me, communication is really important, as well as empathy and being able to appreciate the feelings that other people have. Those are really important to me, but they might not be important to somebody else. Or depending on the situation, they might not be super important. Depending on what kind of leader we need. Like Gandhi was a different kind of leader than Winston Churchill, who they were both leaders around the same time, but for different situations, and that their style of leadership or their qualities and traits were what the countries that they oversaw respectively needed. So there's kind of no right answer to that question, which is good to know because it means we can be a good leader no matter what situation we're in. But some ones that are pretty important, according to the text, but that are pretty important for most situations are self-awareness and identity, being aware of your abilities and what you're good at. Identity, knowing who you are. Don't always, the leader, it's rough to have a leader who changes depending on their situation because then they're not leading, they're following. Courage, being able to do things that might scare them. Creativity, to see things outside of the box and look beyond. Drive and determination, focus, commitment, high expectations for themselves and for the people that they oversee. Honesty, of course. Integrity, which is similar to honesty. It is honesty. However, integrity implies that you're going to do right even if no one would ever know, or even if it wouldn't really affect anyone. And then positive mental attitude. Person who's able to see the positive. I don't know if you have seen the second Lord of the Rings, Two Towers. There's a part where the people of Rohan, and I might be speaking a different language too if you haven't seen the movies, but they're stuck in their fortress, awaiting basically a huge amount of people to come fight them. And their chances are nil. I mean, they're just not going to make it. But their king is positive. He's like, we're going to take them down. And his positivity helped the strength of the army. Whereas if he'd been like, we're screwed, we're going to die, then it wouldn't have gone so well. And they wouldn't have even felt the need to fight. So if you're positive, you can pull more out of people than you would be able to otherwise. So that's why that's important. All right, your values are the attitudes about the worth of people, concepts, and things. How important those things are to you, or what role they play in your life, are your values. It's important to be aware of your values. There's not necessarily always a right and a wrong value. I mean, of course, you shouldn't steal and things like that. Those are good values, but you should be aware of your values. Particularly if it comes to like religious values, it can be questionable whether or not you should be asserting your values on others, or if you should be even acknowledging your values. And honestly, it sometimes depends on the situation. If you work for an organization like the Boy Scouts or for a religious organization, then your religious values are, of course, something you're able to kind of bring up and even assert if that's the values of the organization. But a lot of times, your values are not. They shouldn't be brought up. Unless they're basic values like no cheating, no stealing, things like that, then it is important to bring them up. But it's important to understand your values on a more small level, which we'll talk about more when we get to ethics later in the semester. But It's important to understand where you stand on things like cheating. When's it okay to cheat and when's it not okay to cheat? When is it okay to lie? Lying is a completely gray area. Sometimes a lie might be the right choice, but it's important to understand where your values stand in regards to personal, organizational, and cultural life. Positive values for leisure, achievement orientation, being able to want to achieve, that's good and important for a leader. Benevolence, doing good for people. Conformity, when needed, when in Rome, that kind of idea of when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. It's an old phrase. Being able to kind of feel comfortable around different kinds of people and kind of conform to their style if need be. Not changing who you are, but maybe changing to make them feel more comfortable. Power, to be able to comfortably have power. Some people just naturally have power. Those are positive values. Security, providing security for the people that you oversee. Being self-directed, being able to stimulate or feel stimulated by things to naturally want to do them. Tradition, to be able to provide tradition and follow it. Tradition is important. Sometimes it creates the culture of an organization. Being able to make tradition is important. And then universalism are all important values for leaders. But there's many more. It's a short lecture, but a good follow-up. And if we were in class, we would play games now. But you'll be doing that other times in life, so can't do that online. But anyway, as a quick follow-up to leadership skills.